Next up is Ngaire Ackerley. She has, did I say that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much? Okay, I'm going to go with that, I'm sorry. Ngaire has over 9 years of experience designing and developing websites in New Zealand and the UK. She was the co-organizer of WordPress London meetup group. When was that? 3 years ago?
Yeah, about that.
About 3 years ago. She's spoken at many WordCamps and conferences across the UK, the US and New Zealand. Ngaire works in digital design by day and freelances designing and developing custom WordPress websites, I guess by night.
Who
She
knew
has a couple of travel blogs and also a development blog. The links are on her profile online. We love Ngaire because if you come to the meetups on once a month here in Auckland, she's actually designed our logo. So like we say, everything in WordPress is volunteer-based. And thank you so much for that, Ngaire.
Awesome.
She's here to talk to us about designing for website users. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So as Tare said, I'm talking about designing for users. My Twitter username's a little bit of a mouthful, but good luck. If you get some letters right, should get someone. So pretty much what he already said. Like Martin, I haven't really been based anywhere as such for too long. Haven't really owned a bed in about 8 years. I work at a big media company doing digital design, web design and user experience by day. And I've been using WordPress itself probably for about 7 or 8 years. I was a full-time front-end developer and designer over in the UK, and I came back about 1.5 years ago. So because we've all had a bit of a big morning and because this is a talk before lunch, I just want us to be refreshed. So can you all stand up? Okay. I want you to shake it out a little bit. Okay. Awesome. Now I want you to sit down and shut your eyes. Okay. Right, deep breath. Okay. Now I want you all to imagine you've just been given a WordPress project. Clients come to you, you've got the go, you've done the proposal stuff, somehow they've accepted your quote and you're going to get loads of money from this. So what are your first steps? Just have a little bit of a think. What is the first sorts of things that you do when you start a project? Okay, open your eyes. Who can give me something? Yep. To-do list. To-do list? Okay.
Write them an email.
Write them an email?
Yeah, welcome.
Oh, welcome. Okay, cool. Anyone else? Yep.
Send them a deposit invoice.
Okay, yep. All good things. Yep.
See if you need help from other people and all.
Okay.
Research some themes.
Research some themes. Okay, so those are all good things, many of which you would do. Particularly get the deposit, want to be paid a little bit before we start. But before we get into themes and development and that sort of thing, why don't we make our first step the user? After all, they're the ones that are going to be using the website. So in this talk, I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to briefly talk about user personas, a little bit about user journey mapping, navigation, imagery, content and layout, fonts, typography, something that will glaze over for a few people, and a little bit about responsiveness and accessibility. So hopefully this should be something, whether you're a designer, a developer, a project manager, someone should be able to get a little bit of something out of all of this. Coming from a design and development background, I always find it's useful to know a bit of both sides, whether you're talking to clients about it or talking to a developer or talking to a designer. It's really useful if everyone knows a little bit about what everyone does. So jumping into the first one, user personas. So identifying user personas help us find out the scope of a project. We might have already got in a brief, but we can delve into that a little bit more. It gives us information so that we can create wireframes, find out interactions and wordings in content. It helps give designers and developers an understanding for the right look and feel and the functionality of the website. And it helps ensure we get the right content on the site so that our users can have the right solutions in front of them. So what is a user persona? Basically, it's a type of user. We find out about our types of users. It shows us their needs, so their goals, what they need to get from the website. It helps us see how a user moves through the website, what their expectations are. Are there any expectations that we didn't anticipate? And it helps us identify features and functionality, and mainly, the main big one is find out what the user's goals and values are. Because as a user, I want to get something out of this website experience. I'm not too fussed what the client wants me to do, but I want to get some information or do something. So there's another side to this talk where you could talk about designing for content or designing for clients' goals. So there's different ways of taking it, but this time we're focusing on the user. So how do I discover user personas? It can be as easy as doing a bit of user research, looking at analytics, speaking to the client. Like Dee mentioned earlier, let's get involved with the client and their business. Let's talk about them, to them, who they think their users are, but also anticipate that they may not be aware of some of their users. If we find out new things or think about it in a different light, let's do some research. Let's talk to some potential users, find out the key points about them, brainstorm. Think about what their expectations are. Ask a user why they would want to go to this website, what they want to achieve from their experience. From that, we can identify a few different personas. We might have 3 to 5 personas per website. Now these are kind of big ones that may encompass a few different little personas into one because they've each got different goals and different experiences that they have. They might use different devices, they might be different ages and come from different backgrounds. So say we've done our research and everything and we compile it all. What does a user persona actually look like? It has goals and motivations in it. It has the current pain points and frustrations. We have a little bit of demographic data about them, maybe a short bio and quote, so that we can relate it back to it. We can imagine these people in real life. We find out their technical ability and the devices they use and how often, and what other brands and websites they use. That's actually a really important one as well from a designing and development perspective. Where are our users at the moment and how can we create a different user experience to better suit their needs? So if I use an example, through this presentation I'm going to use the example of a website about reducing youth bullying. Okay, we might have various different user personas. We might have someone who's being bullied, they're a young teenager, they're coming to the site for a bit of help. We might have someone who is a bully who wants to find out a little bit more and has stumbled up across the site wondering, oh, what am I doing? We might have the parents wanting help as to what they can do for their child. We might have people who want to volunteer or donate from all different walks of life. So in this example, we've got Ricky. He's 30, he's from South Auckland. He's an office worker, he works alone. This is a little bit of his background. He wants to volunteer or donate in some way. He used to be bullied as a kid and he wants to make a difference. But the annoying thing is he finds donations ask too much information and he doesn't want it to get too personal or take too long. He's a little bit introverted. He watches TV, donates to street appeals, that sort of thing, dreams of doing good in the world. He's very tech savvy. He owns an iPad, an iPhone, laptop, works on a desktop, and is pretty comfortable in a few of the big browsers. Other websites that he uses and enjoys might be BBC News, LinkedIn, Reddit, that sort of thing. You might even have a little photo or drawing to illustrate this as well, so that you have a visual to keep in mind. So this kind of gives us a really good basis. Imagine we've done this for 3 to 5 of our users. Then we can really start to imagine who is using this website. Okay, from there we jump into user journey mapping. So how will these users that we've just discovered all about, how are they going to use our website? How do they use our current website, or how may they use it in the future? So a user journey map, it's typically a series of steps, 4 to 12 steps, representing a scenario that the user might interact with the website. It helps us understand the user behavior, identify functionality, and look at the interface requirements that we may have. So, creating a user journey. We've got our personas in front of us. We can think about each of the user personas' goals, their main tasks. We can think about our website and how they might navigate through our website to achieve this task. So we need to think about the context. Where is the user? What's around them? Are they being distracted? Are they solely concentrating on this task? Thinking about the progression, how they move along from one step to the next. Is there anything in particular in the website that directs them to the next step? What device are they using? Are they a novice? Are they an expert? Do we need to cater for this ability? And what sort of functionality are they expecting? Are they expecting a big slideshow of this is how you donate? Or are they expecting a simple button and they click and bada bing, it's done? And what is their emotional state? I'm sure we all want our users to come to our websites and they're so happy. They want to return because it's been an awesome user experience. How realistic is that though? Are they engaged? Are they bored? Or are they sadly starting to get annoyed and maybe they're not going to come back to our website? So these are all the things that we think about in a user journey. So I've done a really, really rough basic one. Forgive me for not making it look pretty. So with Ricky, he's on his iPad or his phone. He hears about this website about youth bullying from his family, rings a little bell in his head, and he types it into Chrome on his iPad in front of the TV. So he's not fully engrossed in it, he's got distractions, but he's actively decided to do this. He goes to the homepage. He wants to research a little bit about the charity, reads into the About page, events, ways he could volunteer maybe, or hold on a second, he sees a donate button. It's nice and clear, so he clicks on it, he goes to a page about donations, where the donations go. He's interested, okay. He goes to a form to fill out for donations. Then he goes to another form because the charity actually wants to find out a little bit why he's donating. Then he goes automatically to a credit card payment form because we think it's speeding it up, it's making it nice and simple. Hold on, he doesn't want to pay by credit card, he wants to pay by bank transfer. So he goes back, checks, hold on, no, that's the only way. He just wants to get it over and done with, he's gone this far, so he pays by credit card, donation made. A little bit of a waffly user journey. So if we think about his emotions during these times, He starts off being interested and excited. This is a way he can make a difference. It relates to him personally. It's really interesting. What they do, it's all good stuff. And he thinks donations, yeah, that's a good way forward. It means I don't actually have to physically get out there and volunteer. He goes to the donations page, he's a little bit wary and unsure, like, is this legit? Then he goes to a form and another form. He starts to get frustrated, it's taking a lot of time, this is what he hates about donations. He's pretty close to giving up when he realises about the whole payment thing. But in the end, he's satisfied, but he probably won't come back, won't recommend the site. So you can see there's a few issues around this user journey. So if we think into the future how we could improve it, we might strip out a few things. We might make it really simple. There's one form to fill out. On that form, it displays the ways of payments. He clicks on the payment method and does his thing. So instantly we managed to strip out 3 steps almost. Could possibly go even further on this, but this is the basic version I've created. So you can see, thinking about user journeys, it can get to be a little bit technical in thinking about the steps your users take, but it can be really beneficial because this shows us how they can achieve their goals. And it puts it in writing, and you can show these to your clients. Then your clients are getting an idea of who their users are, what their user journeys are, and it helps them to start build up content ideas. So we've got the user journey. Let's jump into navigation. So navigation is all about how we direct the user around the website, obviously. Something to think about is users are lazy. When you go to a website, you want to get to the point as quickly as possible. The shorter the distance to reach the goal, the more motivated they will be to reach it. We need to start making websites a little bit more for scanning rather than reading, which is rich, me coming from a news website day job, but on the whole, most websites should be for scanning. We can provide extra information if people really want it, but there's ways we can make it easier to scan, to get to the point, get there faster, keep them interested. So for navigation, what hopefully a lot of you will be familiar with is sitemaps. So from the user journey mapping, we might create a navigation sitemap, and this might require a few iterations. We might think about the homepage, about services, information, events, contact, and donate. So this might be the first way that you get it all down in paper. But you might also be able to start to think about, do they actually need a sole donate page? Maybe you use a third-party donation service, and maybe that donation aspect is just in the right-hand column on every page, something like that. Is there a way to combine about and services to get to the point a bit easier? So I think it's important to not only think about what pages we need in the site, but how this information can start to be put together to keep it really concise, and so that the users can still reach their goals. It's coming back to the user personas, their values, their goals. And from the user journey mapping, you can see this is the sort of way that they need to go, what they need to get to in the site. Okay. So, imagery and content. What do our users actually need to reach their goals? What on the website do they need to see and read? So this comes back to a point that Dee mentioned about bringing in the clients early on again. Whether the clients give you imagery and content, read through it before designing or developing to understand the meaning and the tone. better still, talk to the clients before they get too heavy into their content, talk them through the user personas, the user journey mapping, so they can start to think about how they can create their content, what words they actually need, rather than just giving you one big Word document and saying, put that on the About page. What actually information do the users need to get out of that About page to reach their goals? So it's all about working with the client early on. Create a brief style guide for the site to follow. So this is at the beginnings when you're starting to think about the website, think about fonts, colours, layouts, that sort of thing early on, so that as you're designing and developing, you can go back to the style guide and go, yep, I chose that font for headings, that font for body, and I'm going to keep using that. Think about how we can create appropriate content to help the different user personas achieve their goals. I've kind of already mentioned that. And thinking between the different user personas, what sort of content overlaps? Is there a way that we can, rather than having 5 different About pages, is there certain things that we can include in one About page that's going to cover all bases without it being useless for too many people? When it comes to imagery, think about it carefully. Imagery, animation and all that sort of thing can be distracting, but also think about where it's appropriate. Think about in the images themselves, how can we make them appropriate? People's faces, their eyes, people are attracted to that. So not just say, I need a photo. Try to think a little bit more about the photo that you need and where it's going to be placed and how is that going to be beneficial. So then we've got a more cohesive design, we've got the right styles, we've got the right content, the right imagery, and we're getting people through our website. But we also need a good user experience with the layout. So we start with wireframes. We identify key elements and functionality. We build these wireframes from our user personas, our user journey mappings. We've got an idea of where they move through the site through our navigation sitemap. We build these wireframes, boxes, sketches, basic. Identifying the functionality and seeing how users through these wireframe boxes can get to their goals. So we can think about how we can use the content and imagery to attract our user through the site as well as we build up these wireframes. Are there certain visual cues of links or buttons, more information, or maybe just little quotes within the content or headings that we can help direct the user through the site? Going back to that user journey of Ricky moving the site, he saw a donation button on the page and that's what made him click to donate. So are there little things that we can put on the site without being obtrusive to direct the user through a certain journey? And can we cleanly start to build them into our design and our layouts? Okay. Right, so typography, fonts, text stuff. Somehow I've got 2 slides on this, you're going to love it. So, web fonts, they're not the same as print fonts. Don't start printing out this beautiful fonts on a page and say it's going to look like that. It's not. They're 2 very different things. When it comes to web fonts, we really need to be careful to think about readability. Different styles, sizes, bold, italics, glyphs, numbers, all those sorts of things. Some web fonts actually don't cover all the different glyphs. Some fonts, the 0 will look like the letter O, and you'll get issues with the number 1, L's, I's, those sorts of things. So it's important to actually early on when you're choosing a font, look at how the whole font looks in all these different styles and sizes and lowercase and uppercase numbers and everything. Just look at it as a whole and make sure that it's going to be readable, because you can't be sure what your client's going to use. They might never use that glyph for the degrees Celsius, but then how do you know that? They might be talking about Auckland weather and relating it somehow to children being mean to other children because the weather's bad. They might need that degrees symbol. So let's just think about that carefully. Avoid quirky fonts that break convention. We all want to be eye-catching with our design. We want to be proud of our design, and we want to be able to be recognised and all that sort of thing. But when it comes down to it, our users are coming to the site for content, for a purpose. In terms of the design, we've just got to help present that content in a nice way. I've got a link at the end of this presentation which will be out online about invisible design, and I encourage you to have a little bit of a look at that, because it talks about how invisible design can actually be really beneficial. So let's think about letter and word spacing of the font before we actually start to use it on the website, so that we don't have to start doing letter spacing in CSS and realizing, shit, this font really doesn't space out very well, all the words merge together and looks utterly horrible. But that's the font we already agreed on, that's what the client signed off on. Why don't we check that early on first? And think about complementary fonts carefully. So usually I'll suggest serif fonts only for headings, not for body copy. You might use sans serif fonts. If you don't know what that is, this is a sans serif font. It's got no little tails on the end. The ones that do have tails are serif fonts. They're great for reading in books, not so much on the websites. So use them in small places sparingly for short headings, that sort of thing. But try to use sans serif fonts for body copy. It just keeps it clean, easier to read. And while we're doing all that, let's look at the styling of quotes, bullets, headings. Let's think about having our bullets outside of content so they don't break up the content. But we can also use headings and quotes to actually break up the content when we want it to be. That way, rather than reading a solid block of text, our readers are getting highlights all the way through and their eyes are being attracted to certain points, and they might just decide to skip a few paragraphs and jump down to that other heading, whereas you might otherwise lose them halfway through the second paragraph. So that way, we're just encouraging our users through the website, and again, it's a way of directing them through the site. And it all comes down to consistency. Let's think about white space, the line heights, the spacing, the padding, all those things around images, around paragraphs, and between our columns, our grids, all that sort of thing. And let's just get it consistent. We want a nice, cohesive user experience. Okay, so last kind of point is about responsive design and accessibility. All over the world, there are different cultures. Every country has different ages, different genders, different beliefs. Some people are colourblind, some have motor impairments, some have physical and mental disabilities. People can be using different devices, browsers, internet speeds all over the world. We can't really control who's going to see our website. We know from our user personas, our main users, and we obviously have to cater for them first and foremost, but it doesn't hurt to think a little bit wider as well. So, let content, not device, determine breakpoints. What do I mean by this? I basically mean that devices are changing all the time. Their screen sizes. We can't dictate what sizes are going to be in 5 years. I Apple seem to be bringing one out every couple of year or two, and Samsung are going at it like anything as well. So let's look at a fluid design, have a good grid, and as we make our content smaller or bigger, when it breaks or when it gets too compact, that's when we insert a breakpoint, that's when we move content a little bit. That's also a good test for what we actually need on the website. If we suddenly think we're going to remove something, why did we have it there in the first place? We shouldn't be hiding content. If we hide content, it shouldn't be there. So keep media queries simple. We don't need websites that have hundreds of media queries where every 10 pixels something breaks. There's something wrong with our design and our development if we're putting in that many media queries. Balance accessibility with obtrusiveness. So yes, we've got to cater for colourblind people. A lot of us don't. There's all different types of colourblindness. And we might decide that the best thing for these people is to have big, black, bold text on our website. It's going to be the most readable. It's going to be a little bit off-putting for everyone else. So let's just balance that. Let's have the right colours, right sizes, but let's not make it really ugly either. Let's balance it out. And test on as many devices and platforms as possible. Test on all the ones that you know your user personas are using, and test on the latest ones and a few more if you can. Try and make it work for the most used ones, and try and make it so that it's not really horrible and breaking on all the others. A few little problems on the really low used devices we can expect. Okay. So that whipped around. I've talked about user personas, who are the people using our website and what are their goals. Briefly chatted about user journey mapping, how our users achieve their goals, what are their steps to achieve them. Talked about navigation, keeping it simple and easy to use. Layout, keep it user focused and consistent. Typography, fonts, think about readability, big thing. And let's design for content and as many people as possible. Here's some links, some good ones about personas, user journeys. I signed up for Smashing Magazine recently, and they give you a free ebook which covers a lot of these things as well. It's really good. And the last one is the invisible design slides that I mentioned. So I'll put these online at designac.com. Feel free to check them out later. Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry, can I get a mic and then we'll questions?
Yep, that one.
Yeah, that one looks good.
Thanks.
Cool. Questions? Oh, sorry.
Thanks. So my question is about user personas. What are your recommendations of how to accurately define them? Like, do you conduct any research in scope analytics, or what to do to define their needs and things?
So I think it depends on budget, time, clients, and all those sorts of things. I'd recommend looking at your analytics and talking to your clients first and foremost. If you have more time and more people, then definitely you can go out to marketing companies and do proper user research, all that sort of thing. That's wonderful if you have the time and budget. But first and foremost, talk to your clients, have a look at your analytics, talk to a few different people, think about it, and ideally be able to talk to some users directly, and that might spawn off some other things as well. Cool.
Other questions? Coming down and then
Hi there. What do you think about the use of concertinas? I had a copywriting client recently, and they wanted their website to be very mobile friendly. So we did I would do, for the first page, I did quite a lot of the home page and the about page. Then it was like just a few lines, and then if people wanted to know more, you went down to the concertina. Now that seems to contradict what you were saying about logical flow.
Yeah, so concertinas, someone else mentioned to me the other day about the parallax stuff, and it's all, it has a time and a place and a trend. So I would first and foremost say to that accessibility and you know, cross devices and platforms and that sort of thing. How user friendly are they? But coming down to the users, if I'm a user, I don't know, maybe I'm a 60-year-old user, I just want the content, I just want to be able to donate. And I go to the site and I can't actually see it, and I've got to click on all these buttons to get to my point. So it's weighing up that click versus display as well. I chatted to one of my colleagues the other day about navigation, whether it was more beneficial to have a gigantic drop down that covered all these different pages versus just clicking on a page and I can see all the different links.
But if you're not getting someone to donate, if it's for the user, does that make it different?
It depends on your users. You've got to think about the users, and I don't know what your client is and what the purpose of the site is, so it's
Blind Foundation.
Blind Foundation, okay. So it's a good example of it needs to be accessible, doesn't it? So I guess thinking about that is thinking about who is coming to the website, and is it going to put them off having to click? Like, is that another interaction that's just going to annoy them and send them off the site? Or is it actually a nice user experience that I can instantly see all the different things you cover? So sorry, I'm not giving you one way or another, but it's really coming down to thinking about those users. Okay.
Yeah, my question relates to the breakpoints.
Mm-hmm.
You touched upon it briefly. Is there some sort of rule of thumb that you use when applying, when inserting a breakpoint?
Okay, so I do it when my design breaks. So I might have a 3-column grid and it might be fluid, so I might be designing in percentages. And as I move the window smaller, I get to a point where, hold on, my content's actually not looking very nice. So that's when I'll chuck in a breakpoint and maybe move 1 column down. And then I'll again move my browser smaller. When does it look bad? Chuck in another breakpoint and move it down. Whereas a lot of people will say, hold on, no, let's go, mobile device is, I don't know, 400 pixels, tablets, 800 pixels, browsers, I mean, desktop browsers are 1200, for instance. I don't believe that's a good way. I believe do it when your content breaks.
Do you have any success measuring the results of those breakpoints? Because that might be tricky, I see.
No, I'm not very good at measuring my own design. I just have my own beliefs. It comes down to your users. Like if it looks good on all the different devices, then that's good, isn't it? As opposed to, hold on, here's 1 point, and in between those 2 points, it looks pretty horrible, but those are our set break points. So I just want it to look good at all stages, so that's why I do it that way. Cool.
This is the question everybody wants to know. What do you do when your client gives you a really ugly logo?
Oh, man.
We've all been there.
Is this one for the portfolio?
What are tips, I guess, to deal with that conversation? Do you just do a digital one instead of using the original print one?
I think it depends on the client and how good you are at convincing them of things. It's like when a client might come to you with a vertical logo when it needs to be a horizontal logo for the website. That's a perfect example of when is there a way that you can get the vector version of it and convert it a little bit so it still keeps their brand, but it at least works a little bit better in the space. So yeah, it's really balancing how friendly the client is. It would be great if you can pinpoint different reasons as to why that logo doesn't work. Maybe it's for colorblind people and it's completely wrong colours for colorblind people and they can't define between it. or maybe the font is too small. So on a website, you're actually never going to be able to read what the company's about. So those are all really good starting points to really pinpoint to the client that these are why you should consider either redesigning or rejigging your logo a little bit. You don't want a completely different logo on the website to your business cards. You want to keep it all consistent and all cohesive for a brand perspective. You don't want different things in different places, but if you can tweak it from being vertical to landscape, those sorts of things you can think about. Does that help?
So we've got 2 more questions. Cool.
Really simple one. How many fonts do you think is enough, or how many different styles of fonts do you think is enough for a website?
2, 3 at most. I think in most cases you'll have a heading font and you'll have a body font, and that body font might be able to be used in a different weight as well. So you might decide to use a regular body font and you might use a bold body font for the navigation. So it's not saying that I don't know, let's say I use Helvetica. It doesn't mean that because it's 2 different looks and feels for the navigation to the body that I need a whole new font. I can use the same family, just a slightly different weight. But any more than 3, you've got to have a really good reason. I'm pretty harsh. Same goes with colours.
Just talking about responsiveness, for freelancers, having one of every device to be able to test on is obviously impractical. Do you have anything that you suggest from a service point of view that will actually provide those different devices
So
and sizes?
I always recommend trying to have, as best as you can, try to have say an Apple phone and an Android phone, and ideally one of each tablet, because things are always going to be most accurate on the actual device. On your desktop computer you can have multiple browsers, there's no reason you can't do that. But then there's also a few websites out there like Browser Stacks. They basically you can type in a website that you want to test and it will connect you across to all the different kind of browsers and devices and things like that. Not 100% accurate, but it gives you a good idea. So that's why I say try to have the main ones, like at least the different operating systems physically, and then you can use things like Browser Stacks for testing more. And yeah, it's balancing your priorities. Cool.
Are there any other questions for Ngaire?
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, thank you very much.